There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cameron Chronicles. I'm your host, Alex Jackson, alongside my co-host, Max Rego. Today, we have a very special guest, former sports editor, Jake Piazza. Jake, want to say a quick hi?
Happy to be here, guys.
We got a nice show for you today, talking about the Duke men's basketball team 2022-2023 season getting underway this past week, and then what's ahead for the next week with Kansas in the Champions Classic. So, yeah, Max, you want to take it from here?
Yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks, Jake, for joining. Always love having me on the show. Yeah, so obviously, two blowout wins for Duke, 71-44 against Jacksonville, 84-38 against USC Upstate. Pretty convincing wins on both fronts, but obviously against some, so-so competition and not really, indicative of what this team's going to face in non-conference play and the rest of ACC play as well. But some things to look for. So one of the things we want to do is we kind of just want to highlight a couple guys that we think stood out. Alex, I know you had someone in mind that you wanted to talk about. He's a guy who didn't play a lot last year, but this year he's been stepping it up. So fire away.
Yeah, my big highlight from these first two games has been Jaylen Blakes. I think if you watched any Duke basketball, it's very noticeable his impact in the game. And after last year, his freshman season, kind of a nothing year for him. No one really expected much from him this year. He has played way more minutes than anyone's realized, I think, expected. 21 in the first game, 20 in the second game. And he's an instant impact guy. I mean, on the defensive end, he's gotten 3 steals. Both of those, or all 3 of those, led to transition points. And then a big block from the last game that I'm sure was on every highlight reel on Instagram and Twitter. And he's also been shooting the ball pretty well. He doesn't shoot much, only 7 shots through the first 2 games, but from 3-point land, he's 2 of 3 in the first game, 1 of 1 in the second game. And he's been getting to the line too. 6 free throw attempts, 3 makes. I mean, obviously everyone wants to be higher at the stripe there, but I'm sure that'll come around. Overall, I mean, just a great opening week for him. Really feeling the role that Dereck Whitehead is leaving behind right now as he's hurt. Big question for me is what's that role for Blake's going to look like once Dereck gets back, because then they'll have Roach and Granderson and Whitehead all kind of rotating in the guard spots, and you also want to fit Blake's in there because he's been playing so well. What do you guys think about what that might look like when he gets back?
Well, Alex, I wanted to ask you just one thing in it. How much better does just his jump shot look? I feel like it's night and day different from last year. And I know you said he hasn't shot a lot, but in the shots we have seen, it's so much more fluid and mechanically sound than what we saw at this time. I mean, I shouldn't even just say at this time, even at the end of the season last year.
Yeah, he just looks like a totally new player out there. I mean, he's just so smooth with his shots, and it's quick release too, which is so important. And for like what the role he's been playing is kind of like a catch and shoot guy. He's fit it so well, and so I think Duke has been missing some shooting as of right now. No one, Roach has been shooting it well from outside, but having Blakes there while Dereck is out is so important to give Duke some help from beyond the arc.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a scorer, right? Like he's never going to be a 15-point a game guy. I mean, I think the classic comparison is Jordan Goldwire, how much he improved from his freshman to sophomore year. Obviously, everyone remembers how big of a role he had in that Louisville comeback, alongside Zion, Cam, and RJ. But then obviously, everyone remembers all the threes he hit during that Florida State game his junior year. But that's kind of the role that I kind of see as a good one for Blakes, because he's a really good defender. He's really pesky. He loves to get up in your face defensively. Really aggressive defender, which is really beneficial for Duke. It lets everyone kind of play a little looser on defense. I kind of thought it was interesting. I don't know if you guys feel the same, that there was a lot of lineups where both Roach and Blakes were on the court together, kind of sharing the ball handling duties, which kind of helps Roach out a little bit because he's always going to handle the ball a lot. But if there are certain, if there's a 2-3 minute stretch where he can kind of play off the ball, maybe have a couple spot up looks, that just makes his workload a little less on offense, at least. But yeah, I think Blake's has been really impressive. One guy that I wanted to reference, I kind of just mentioned him, was Jeremy Roach. I just think he's clearly, he came into the season, I think, as the proverbial potentially the most valuable player on the team. I thought it might be Whitehead, but Roach's value was obviously very obvious last year in that run to the Final Four, but he's been, I think, really impressive. His stats don't blow you away. 13 points, 6 assists, 50% from the field, which is actually a big jump. I know it's a super small sample size. But just the way he's controlled the game. I mean, when Duke went down 7-0 against USC Upstate, without a guy like Roach to settle things down, get them into their offense, get them into their sets, I think they could have, that could have been a back and forth game for a half there. But yeah, he's been really impressive. I mean, his shot looks good. He's shooting. He was 2 of 6 from 3 against Upstate and 4 of 7 from 3 against Jacksonville. And one of the things I kind of noticed is he's looking for his 3-point shot. Like last year, it was kind of within the offense. Like he gets an open look off a swing and then he'll shoot it. But now it seems like Scheyer's giving him kind of free reign a little bit more to kind of fire when he feels comfortable. And if he's able to get a switch, he can fire it up over a big guy. I think he's just really looked impressive in running the offense, and him and Scheyer, they communicate a lot. Scheyer communicates to them a lot from the sideline. Yeah, I think he's been pretty impressive. So anything to add on that?
Yeah, I agree with what you said about him looking for his shot. I mean, he picked up right where he left off from last year, with that potential to be such a deadly outside scorer, which wasn't really something we as Duke followers expected when he first came to Duke. It was kind of expecting him to be more of like a playmaking first type of guard. So that it's really encouraging to see him pick up right where he left off and be able to be a knockdown shooter for Duke. I know that that's something that they've been looking for and have obviously been missing from last year, as I just mentioned when we were talking about Blake's. Having Roach just be able to command the offense, and then B, when he's not commanding the offense, just take the shots that he wants to take, it is really going to be beneficial for Duke all year long.
I mean, this is the version of Jeremy Roach that last year, in the ACC tournament, when Duke beats Syracuse, and everyone, obviously the focus is on K's last season and, a potential 6 national championship. But that was the time when the conversation started being, if that version of Jeremy can come back next year with, the recruiting class that Duke had coming in, it was going to be a pretty lethal combo for opponents. And I think we're really seeing that so far. Guy I want to talk a little bit about, Mark Mitchell. I don't know if maybe it was just because of the injuries to Lively and Whitehead in the preseason, but for some reason I feel like we haven't talked as much about Mark Mitchell. And it's crazy. I'm looking at the 247 Sports recruiting rankings. Like he was their 5th best recruit in the class after Proctor reclassified, and he was a 5-star. But with Mitchell so far, I think the thing that I've been impressed with the most is we heard a lot about this, particularly in preseason, was his versatility. And I feel like we've seen that a lot so far on defense. He can definitely switch on 1 through 5. And kind of on the other side of the ball, I think the slashing abilities has been a real positive for Duke. I think he's probably their best guy right now at getting the ball in the wing and making a few moves and taking it to the hole. I think he's been really, really good with that and real efficient so far. I don't want to get too far into stats at this point, but 7 for 14 and 6 of 10 from the field in their 2 games so far. I think Jon Scheyer is going to be okay with that for most of the season. Kind of maybe there's still a question mark with him, and maybe I'm curious with what you guys. Perimeter shooting. I know he shot 2 of 5 from the land of plenty in the first game. But I don't know. It didn't feel in some of his other looks from kind of mid range that he was at that kind of 3 level scorer mode yet. He definitely seems like a guy who's going to do most of his damage kind of around the rim and attacking. What do you guys think on that front?
I definitely agree. I think I'm looking at the stats now. He's 50% from three on the season, 3 of 6. Obviously, again, very limited sample size, and most of those have been wide open off of kickouts from Roach and Blakes and Proctor. But his jumper doesn't really pass the eye test for me. It's kind of a line drive, kind of a I don't know. It doesn't really seem like it's not the most aesthetically pleasing jumper. But it's half the time so far it's gone through the hoop. So, but yeah, he's definitely a really good slasher. Drives to the hole. Obviously he literally opened the season with a dunk off a lob. So he's good. He's a really good athlete. Good with the ball in his hands. I would like to see him maybe look to pass a little bit more when he goes to the hole. It seems like he kind of has his head down. And that comes with more reps, reading the defenses more. But yeah, Alex, any thoughts on what we've seen from Mitchell so far?
Yeah, I think it's obvious if you've been watching these first 2 games that he is everywhere on both ends of the floor. He can really do it all. He is probably the best athlete on the team. I mean, he's just on offense. It's crazy to see. He's constantly moving, trying to get the ball in his hands, make a move, get to the rack. And like you said, has been shooting it. I'm probably going to say that Scheyer doesn't want him shooting it as much because it does not look like his jump shot is in the place it needs to be right now. But yeah, over time, maybe that'll develop. And I'm sure Scheyer will never tell him to pass up an open 3. But as far as just him developing goes, I think he could spend a lot of time working with Ryan Young, who's got probably the best footwork on the team. Those two could learn a lot from each other and could really help Mitchell develop into a great player down low in the post. But I know there's one more guy that you guys wanted to talk about before we moved on from talking about players. A little bit of a disappointment so far this year, Tyrese Proctor. Max, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it's the sky is falling with Proctor. He's obviously just started playing college basketball, but he has been disappointing. I mean, it's not a situation where he doesn't look like he's athletic enough or doesn't look like he's skilled enough. That just the ball hasn't gone through the hoop. So it seems like he's able to get his shot relatively well. I just wonder if maybe the role that he's been in, starting alongside Roach, is maybe the best thing right now, as opposed to maybe a 6-man role where he's with the second unit with a guy like Grandison, with once Lively gets worked in the starting lineup with a guy like Ryan Young, just with if he's able to do some pick and roll, pick and pop stuff with pick and roll with Young, and finding Grandison on the wing, if that could be maybe a better fit for him. I don't know if you guys have any disagree with that at all. But he's shooting 8% from the field. Again, limited. Qualify this whole thing by saying it's a limited sample size, but it just hasn't. He's just not hitting not knocking down his looks, and it seems like he's a guy who really excels with the ball in his hands. If you're going to have him and Roach on the court at the same time, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. As opposed to, I would say, a guy like Blakes is actually an interesting guy to start because he does not need the ball in his hands at all. He can get steals, and he can jumpstart fast breaks. He can get deflections. He can really be great on defense, and he can hit the occasional spot up 3. I think that's a better fit alongside Roach at this point than Proctor is. But I don't know if you guys feel any different.
Yeah, I have one more thing on adding on Proctor. Like I do agree with you, Max, that it's not a sky is falling kind of moment by any means, because it's like in the first 2 games, I feel like what's odd is I've been impressed in a specific point in his game he gets his own shot. Like he's getting good looks at the rim, and they've been contested, but he's creating enough space for himself to get up pretty quality shots. It's just kind of like odd that they're really just not falling, and it doesn't seem that it's rattled him a ton. And granted, he has, I guess, quite a bit of international experience. He's played on big stages before. So I do think it's going to be something that does mellow out. But I think the craziest thing you just said, Max, and I don't mean crazy in the terms of it shouldn't happen, but we're talking Jaylen Blakes in the starting lineup, and I don't think that's totally like out of the question. I think that's a very legitimate like possibility, but I mean, truly just a testament to the progress he made from his year 1 to year 2 leap.
Yeah, I mean, I really think like if you want to maximize, I mean, Scheyer said in the preseason, right? This team is gonna win with defense. You know, if they really want to lean into that defensive, mentality and play off of that, I mean, obviously that can jumpstart your whole offense. So having Blake's pressure guys almost 94 feet can really help with that, and it can get some easy buckets for guys like Roach, for guys like Lively when he's in the starting lineup, for Whitehead when he's back, because he's obviously he maybe won't start his first game back, but he will start the vast majority of games he plays. Easy ones for Mitchell. So Blakes is not a guy. I think the difference between Blakes and Proctor, and this is not a slight at either of them, Blakes can be effective without the ball in his hands. Proctor, he's such a good creator, can get his own shot, very good passer. He excels when the ball is in his hands and the offense is kind of running through him. If Roach is going to be on the court at the same time, he's kind of got to run the offense with, just with his role as the starting point guard. So I just think it's something to note that maybe a role shift could benefit kind of both of those guys. So anything else that we want to go through from players? I mean, I think Ryan Young has been really impressive. His footwork is really solid. He has the classic YMCA game, which is not a slight, but
yeah, I think it's just worth shouting out both of the big transfers, Ryan Young and Jake Grandison. Both of them have been awesome so far, stepping into their roles.
Yeah,
exactly what Duke needed.
Yeah, there have been some very, very funny tweets about Ryan Young, how he's gonna terrorize people at the park until he's 50, because he's just got he's got the footwork, and that's kind of tough to guard, especially because he's older than some of these guys that they're playing. So, and yeah, Grandison has been impressive. He hasn't shot the ball particularly well, but super unselfish. He's able to space the floor, gives them a lot of flexibility on defense, similar to Mitchell. I think Jake, like you said, he can switch. Probably can't switch 1 through 5, but pretty close to 1 through 4, considering his wingspan and his height. So anything else on the player front?
I'll just say as a team, I think the defense has been really impressive. I know that the level of competition hasn't been high, but I know what you guys were just saying about what the identity of the team could be, and the defense has a lot of merit. And one thing that I just wanted to highlight from the first 2 games was that they only allowed opponents to shoot 7 free throws. They have not been fouling, especially they've been playing tough defense in the paint, but not fouling. That's so key to having success over the course of the season. So that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing if that can hold up, especially as they face off against a tougher opponent, Kansas, next week, but over the course of the whole season in general.
Yeah, definitely. Jake, anything on that before we move to a little preview Kansas?
I'm all set. We can talk Kansas.
Sweet. Yeah. Also, another thing I guess to note is, like you said, Alex, the full court press early in games. It's kind of a shift a little bit. Scheyer kind of leaning into that, I think is interesting. Kind of jump started them a little bit against USC Upstate. So when they were down 7-0, and yeah, that block. Just want to shout it again. That block from Blakes that led to the Lively dunk was very impressive. That kind of came out of nowhere. But yeah, so Tuesday night, 9:30, first real test of the season for Duke. Number 5 Kansas, defending national champs, but obviously a much different team. Ochai Agbaji gone, David McCormick gone, Remy Martin gone, Christian Brown gone, Mitch Lightfoot also gone. That's not all those guys were the same level of importance, obviously, but all 5 of them had a role in a national championship winning team. And Bill Self will not be on the sidelines. He's serving the 3rd game of a 4-game suspension for NCAA violations. So Kansas will look even more different from how they looked in the national championship game against North Carolina. So any first off, I guess we can get into what's a key for the game, key to the game, from both of you guys, and that could be a player or that could be a specific trend. What do you guys got?
I think my key to the game is Dereck Lively for Duke for sure. We just got a slight glimpse of him. I think it was just 14 minutes in his season opening game, last game. He didn't look anything spectacular. I mean, he's coming off of a relatively serious injury. So, of course, give him some time to adjust, and they let him play against or let him play with some of the Duke's more backup guys once the game was winding down, just to give him some time to play in game speed. And I think there's a lot to like with him, and I'm just interested to see if it's going to be there at Kansas. I know that he's going to be so good this year for Duke, and he's going to be so important to the team, but is he going to be ready for Kansas? I think it's a big question mark for where Duke stands, and what kind of impact is he going to have once he actually settles into that role, whether it's on Tuesday or in the future.
I want to add a little more on that with you, Oz, because I completely agree. But let me just read you off Kansas's starting five right now and their heights. Jayden Wilson, 6'8", KJ Adams, 6'7", DeJuan Harris, 6'1", Grady Dick, 6'8", Kevin McCullough, 6'6". You take Lively and Ryan Young. At worst, Ryan Young has, at 6'10", 2 inches on their tallest player. Lively's a 7-footer. He's going to have plenty of a height advantage. I think I really want to see if Duke is going to take advantage of that down low. Like we
Flip and Mitchell. You can't forget about them too.
Absolutely. And we talked earlier was it you, Alex, about Ryan Young's footwork, and with the YMCA style. But I mean, that feeding Ryan Young early and seeing if that is going to be viable for the entire game is kind of what I think Duke's maybe best route to start is, because I really think they have an opportunity to kind of dominate, particularly on the offensive side down low.
Yeah, I think this might be the first opportunity. It depends on how Lively looks in practice. I know he was limping a little bit near the end of the first half. Obviously, it's not like it's not speculating. That he literally was, but he also played 4 minutes in the second half. But this might be the first chance to see Filipowski and Lively, that dynamic in the front court, whether they can have the guy to space things, shooting from outside, and also Lively being able to bang down low. Now, obviously, this team wants to play fast. Lively's a guy who can run the floor. Can he beat Kansas's guys down the floor, get some easy dunks, get into a rhythm? And then how can he look at the other end? Because he had 2 blocks on Friday in his debut. And, he's obviously his wingspan is crazy. Very, a couple of times he's, showed some pretty, mature play, just like not going for pump fakes, not, swinging out of nowhere. That's something that's kind of freshman bigs kind of struggle with, at least, but he doesn't seem like he has like that issue. Yeah, I think one thing to note is, I think, Jake, you mentioned him, Jaylen Wilson for Kansas. He has made a huge leap so far this year. He's averaging 20 points a game on over 45% from the field. I'm kind of concerned on Duke's end as to who guards him. Maybe it's Mark Mitchell. But Wilson's been really efficient. He obviously had a role in the national championship winning team last year, but this year has taken it to another level. And, I think if Whitehead was healthy, I think he would probably be the guy to guard him, considering there's just a little similar in terms of body type. But I think that'll be an issue, considering, he had played 25 minutes in their game against North Dakota State on Thursday, and he had 21 points, 9 rebounds, a steal, 3 of 6 from 3, 8 of 17 from the field, and 2 of 2 from the line. So just across the board, a very efficient stat line. Who guards him, I think, is the key to this game. I think if Duke can slow him down, I think that's going to take away a lot of what Kansas wants to do offensively. And I think that's really the key. So anything else on that front?
Yeah, and just in regards to that point, I think Scheyer will likely rotate who's on him for a lot of the game. Obviously, you would like to stick with just Mitchell, but you got to think about how young this Duke team is right now, and so they probably want to give some more experienced players a chance to shut him down before they turn it over to just the young guys. And I don't want to leave Mitchell out on an island there with the task of guarding a guy like him. So we will see. But one question I wanted to ask both of you, I know we brought it up a little bit before, but what position would you rather be in as either Duke or Kansas? Duke missing possibly your best player in Dereck Whitehead, or Kansas missing your heart and soul, your head coach for this game. What are you guys thinking?
That's a tough one. Jake, if you want to weigh in, but and this probably will give away who I think is going to win the game, but I would rather be Kansas. I think Self is still able to be, from what I can understand, he's still able to be around the program, and Whitehead is just not able to play. So obviously these players, the players know what Self wants them to do. He just won't be there for 2 hours on Tuesday night. For Duke, having one of your best players, arguably along with Lively, the best freshman that you're bringing in, not having him for the first big game of the year, I think that hurts Duke more than no Self hurts Kansas, because a lot of coaching is done in basketball. A lot of coaching is done in practice. That's why you notice a lot of, in college it's maybe a little different, but in the NBA at least, a lot of coaches, stand on the bench for a lot of the game and don't get up off their seats for a while. But in college, it's a little different, but there's still a lot of, in practice coaching that's going on. So I think I would rather be Kansas. So that probably gives away who I think is going to win, but I think I would rather be Kansas.
No, I agree, Max, because at the bottom line, at the end of the Kansas game, you're going to know what you got in terms of players, talent, how they're playing together. You're going to get to see all of that because all your guys at one point or other are going to be on the court. I feel like with Duke, I mean, even in the event that Duke does win, it's still kind of unclear on what Duke's potential is without Whitehead. Like you said, Alex, he's potentially their best player on the court. Obviously, winning without Whitehead would be a huge accomplishment. And that's something definitely for Scheyer to be pretty happy about this early on. But I think you would much rather want to be Kansas at this point, to where at worst, even if you do lose, you're going to get a real honest look at where your players are at, and you're going to get to be stacked up against, an opponent like Duke, which is going to be, almost as good of a test as you can get at this point in the season.
Yeah, and just to note, Kansas's interim coach is Norm Roberts. This is the first I've ever heard of him, but he's the former coach of St. John's, and he's been a Self assistant since 2012. Obviously, they're 2-0 before, but yeah, they're 2-0 with him as the interim coach. But obviously, it's a big shift. Do we want to get into some predictions, or what do you guys think?
Yeah, Max, why don't you start us out?
Yeah, so I think it's hard to justify, honestly, picking for Duke. No Dereck Whitehead. Everyone's still figuring out the roles. I think, Lively still working his way back into 100%, basketball shape, I think is an issue. Proctor, if he continues to struggle, unless a really, standout performance comes from, I would say, Proctor or Kyle Filipowski has been solid through 2 games. I don't think he's lit the world on fire, but unless he has like a 20 and 10 night, or Proctor has like a 15 and 6 assist night, I think Kansas probably wins this game by about 10. I just think, we saw some of these guys that Kansas has: Jalen Wilson, Kevin McCullough, who we know from Texas Tech last year. He played really well in that Sweet 16 game from what I remember against Duke. He hasn't been incredible through 2 games. He's averaging 8 points and 5 rebounds, but he's a really good shooter, good defender. DeJuan Harris, their point guard, he's similar in a way to Roach. Roach is probably a little more athletically gifted than Harris, but both juniors. Harris is 6'1" as well. And I believe Roach is listed at 6'1", correct? Maybe 6'2". But yeah, I think Kansas just at this point, they're more set to be a top 10 team as of right now. I think Duke is still coalescing, and I think they're not quite at where they want to be heading into ACC play. I think Kansas is closer to a finished product at this point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm going with
Jake,
Eric. You want to go, Alex?
No, Jake, you're our guest.
Yeah, I'm also going to go. I appreciate your courtesy, but I'm also going with Kansas, Max, for a lot of the reasons you just said. So I'm not going to regurgitate all of them, but I really think when you're looking at the starting lineups on these two teams, just Kansas is so much more experienced in the third game of the season. I think that's going to be all the difference in the world. And I mean, like you said, you stole my little nugget on Kevin McCullar being Duke's old friend from their Texas Tech game, but he played really well against that, and I think he don't play well again. And I am concerned with the flip side of it's definitely a positive on Duke having the height advantage with their bigs down low. I'm a little concerned kind of on the other side of the ball with Filipowski and Ryan Young kind of in the pick and roll game and seeing how that turns out. So I kind of think a combination of the experience and some concerns with some of the bigger guys and the switching is going to be why Kansas comes out on top on this.
Alex, you want to talk about that? I mean, Jake, I agree. I just think McCullar, he might, he's a really good shooter. So I think he might be a tough guy for Duke to contain. So Alex, you got anything?
Yeah, I'm going to take a bit of a different perspective than you guys. I'm actually picking Duke in this one.
Oh, boy.
I just think
Explain yourself.
I think every year when Duke plays in the Champions Classic opening the year, we kind of take on the same perspective. Duke's too young to beat whoever they're playing, right? They won't. Kentucky, Kansas, Michigan State, whatever. They're too young. They still haven't figured it out yet. Maybe later in the year, but somehow they either keep it really competitive or win year after year. And so I think we're discrediting them a bit. Sorry. And I think Scheyer's extremely smart with it. And Jake, what you were saying about the height differential, I think he's going to use that to his advantage. And assuming Lively is going to be in a much better state on Tuesday than he was on Friday, I think Duke could be flexing their size a lot in this game. And it's not like they're without experience at all. We've seen them run lineups of Roach, Granderson, and Young. So that's three experienced guys right there. So I think that Duke this game is going to be close no matter what. I think we can all agree on that. But I think Duke has a real shot to win if they can take advantage of Kansas's flaws. Yeah, even if you guys disagree with me on that.
We do need I think we've glossed over him a little bit, but we do need to bring up, I think Grady Dick on Kansas is the one freshman in their starting lineup. He's been really good so far. He ripped the net off the hoop in their first game. He would drop, what do we got here? I think 23 and on 4 of 6 from the land of plenty. So I think, and that's a matchup problem. He's a 6'8" guard. I guess Proctor maybe lends a little bit better to guarding that on the perimeter, but like we've been talking about, if Proctor can't stay on the floor just because he's not able to contribute on offense, I think Grady Dick is going to be an issue.
I think Dick might be good to put Mitchell on Dick. And honestly, if they want to start Grandison, I think that might be the best thing to do, to put him on Wilson. Because I don't think Proctor – I don't know if Proctor is able to guard Jalen Wilson. I think Jalen Wilson will be able to post, because Kansas likes to – even though Jalen Wilson is technically listed as a forward, he's more of a wing. He's probably a 3. Kansas really likes to post up their wings and their guards. And obviously that's something that, no Bill Self, maybe that'll have an impact. Because I read an article in the Athletic about how a guy watched the national championship game with Bill Self and watched the film and broke it down through Bill Self's eyes. And Bill Self was like, yeah, we would realize that we had to post up our guards because if we did that on, Caleb Love and RJ Davis, we had a huge height advantage because those aren't obviously the biggest guys in the world. So that might be something to watch. But yeah, there might be I think Duke might have to juggle some changes to the starting lineup if it wants to match up well with Kansas. And I'm not saying it won't be close. I think I already sent in my beats pick. I have Duke losing by 9. And so, free throws affect that at the end of the day. But I do think Duke will not win this game. And I think if they played 10 times, I think Kansas probably wins 6 or 7, probably 7. So yeah, that's the direction I'm going in.
I guess I'm just picking one of those 3 games.
There you go. I guess so. One thing to note, Jeremy Roach is listed at 6'2". I wanted to make sure I got that right. And I said Kevin McCullough was a really good shooter. He's not quite a really good shooter. He shoots about he shot just over 30% last year, but he is his shot is very nice looking. So maybe I'm clouded by the eye test there, but
it feels right.
Exactly. It passes the sniff test. Yeah. Anything else that we want to go through? Housekeeping, anything like that? Also, no Christian Reeves, no redshirt this year. Interesting.
I don't think he'll play much at all this season unless he really starts wowing in practice. But I just don't see that being good for this year. Maybe next year, but
that's the classic though. Like you get that one ACC game, and it's late, it's cold, it's winter. Lively's not playing good, and then Christian Reeves kind of comes in and ends up having like a 10-point, 8 rebound night, and steals it. There's going to be one of those in Duke's future. I don't have the schedule pulled up in front of me right now, so I'm not going to call it, but I really do feel like there'll be one of those Christian Reeves games.
I agree. I think like Lively, big guys deal with injuries all the time. It's kind of a maintenance thing, keeping them healthy. And I'm not saying Lively is like injury prone at all. It's shown that he, hasn't had many major injuries. And this isn't a huge injury, but it's possible to, for stuff to linger, for big guys to get banged up during the year. Having Reeves as kind of a safety blanket can help. And, in a game where Lively's either in foul trouble or he's hurt, or Filipowski or Ryan Young is dealing with foul trouble or they're hurt, I think Reeves could be a guy to step up and have like you said, Jake, like a 10 and 8 game. I mean, he's like that. He seems like a good fit for that. So anything else, Alex? All right.
We're all good.
Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, none of us will be at the game on Tuesday. So our Jonathan Leviton and Micah Hurwitz, is that correct? They'll be at the game, right? So they'll be bringing you all the coverage, and we will be here to recap it on the podcast, maybe next week. So depends on our schedules, but yeah, thank you guys for joining, and thanks everyone for tuning in.